here's another one. Look, this works very well in mathematics, where students are often shown how to do things by the teacher, and then the teacher says, okay, I've done 2 or 3, now you do some. Instead of that, what happens here is the teacher says, okay, I've done 2 or 3, here are some worked examples. Each pair has got 2. I want the person nearest that wall to look at example 1. I want the person nearest that wall to look at example 2. Look at that worked example, which is like a problem solved with all the working and so on. I want you to write in the margin why each line, what was happening in each line. So if you think, you know, it's dividing by 100 to find 1%, just write that in the margin. And then I want you to explain it to your partner, and your partner will explain the other question to you. So the students now study the worked example, then they explain it. So that's another example of exemplars. You can get students to look at a couple of evaluations. Say students aren't very good at evaluating. You show them some good evaluations that were done last year, or you make some up. And you say to them, here's a couple of evaluations. I want you to have a look at them, see what the person's done. I want you to tell the partner why it's a good evaluation. And when they get good at it, maybe you show them some moderately good evaluations that could be improved. And they look at those and try and work out how to improve them. So, you know, there's a whole lot of things there. I want you to think, what other exemplars could students explain to each other than mathematical ones of worked examples, calculations and the like, other than evaluations, good examples of punctuation and so on. Can you think of some other exemplars where students could be given examples of good practice? There might be practical ones. It doesn't have to be theoretical. Examples of good practice, and have to explain perhaps how it was done, or explain the characteristics of that high quality work. Just give you a couple of minutes to consider that. If you teach computing, actually, you might like to look at page 15. There's a method there called Pilot and Navigator, which looks at a peer explaining approach where students explain to each other how to do computing tasks, and it's very powerful. And the students love doing peer explaining, actually. It's a very popular method. So I'll use it with you, so you can see, you know, that it does work. I want you to work in pairs, if you wouldn't mind, yeah? And I'd like you to read page 17 and 18. One of you in the pair is A and one is B. It doesn't matter who's who. One of you will read and underline the key points about peer assessment in groups, which is on page 17. And the other will look at peer assessment with model answers, which is on page 18. Both of these are found to have done exceptionally well in these trials of teaching methods. It's one of the top 1% of teaching methods in terms of improving students' achievement. It's these are very, very, very well worthwhile making space for in your classes. And remember, the purpose of this day, you know, of my input on this day, is to look at teaching methods that you could try back at the ranch, you could try in your classes, and maybe encourage other colleagues back at home, home college to use as well. So what I want you to do is to just read that bit of text about that method, underline the key points, and then I'd like you, if you wouldn't mind, to explain the method. And if you wish, it might help, there's bits of blank paper on your table. If you wish, you can draw a diagram. You can turn it into a diagram and explain with the diagram if you prefer. But I don't want you to read the text. It's got to be your own words, right? So that's to ensure that you form your own understanding rather than tell them mine. So I don't want you to read the text. I just want you to create your own meaning, and if you wish to, your own diagram. And then I'd like you to explain, you know, A will explain to B A's method, and obviously B will explain to A B's method. So you'll explain to each other's methods. And at the end, I'd like you to discuss, why do these methods work so well? In hundreds of thousands of trials, we've found certain teaching methods are right up there in the top 1% in terms of students' improvement. These are amongst the methods that raise students' performance by 2 grades at GCSE when the teacher, or 2 grades at A level, when the teacher uses them really well. they've been found in certain cases to double students' attainment. I'll say that again. Double students' attainment. Teacher doesn't use it, student gets 35% in the test. Teacher does use it, same student, 70% in the test. Doubles students' attainments in certain contexts, these methodologies. So they're immensely powerful. I want to know why, as well as you explaining them to each other, please. So there we go. You've now got about a couple of minutes to read it and underline. Prepare your explanation. You'll do that by yourself. And then you'll have a few minutes to explain when you're both ready. May I pick your brains? Who'd like to, if you can put your hand up if you're happy to give us an answer to this. I mean, there's a number of reasons, again, why these methods work. But why does peer assessment in groups, or why do peer assessment in model answers work? Either one of them or both of them. Anybody like to give us a thought? There's a thought here. Anybody like to give us a thought about why it works? If you put your hand up, then we'll find a microphone. Hopefully a microphone will come to you.
I was looking at peer assessment in groups.
Yes.
And I think there are a number of reasons why this works particularly well. One is that you've got this idea of peer mentoring, sort of peer tutoring.
Yes.
Especially if you put your pairs together sensibly or your groups together sensibly, more able students can explain to the weaker students in their group how they came to their own answer. Yep. But they're using their own vocabulary and putting it in a way that's going to make perhaps better links to their own learning and understanding.
Yes.
And again, it's the students actively searching for meaning, not passively processing the information.
Well, I think that's an absolutely brilliant summary of why that method works, and absolutely spot on. The students are searching for meaning and expressing it, and the peers can help each other make that sort of link with their prior learning. They'll use vocabulary which will make your toes curl from time to time. They won't necessarily use the proper vocational or academic vocabulary, but they need to start with street vocabulary in order to get to the academic vocabulary if they're going to have a meaning for that academic vocabulary. And so the process of expressing it in their own words helps them climb the ladder up to the proper academic or vocational terminology, as it were. Another reason why, perhaps particularly the peer assessment with model answers works. Why does that work? Anybody like to put their hand up for that one and just give us a word or two about it? Anybody got any ideas why that one works? Again, a number of reasons. We've got one here, Julie, but sorry to... This is the one that, in certain circumstances, has doubled students' attainment. In other words, they're learning twice as fast.
Yeah, I think the importance of this one is that it's a great way of getting the students to take ownership and responsibility for every aspect of their learning. They're internalising it.
Yes.
But they're also acting, in this case, almost like examiners. They're acting as markers.
Yes.
But further on from that as well, they're feeding back as examiners and explaining the reasons for perhaps why they gave an A rather than a B, and articulating their reasons for those grades.
Lovely, excellent. And students need to know, they need to be familiar with the grading process, the marking process. They need to know what a marker looks for. It's very hard to score if you don't know where the goalposts are. Yeah? And when you do score, you probably score by accident. So if the thing about using assessment criteria or competencies or whatever, however sort of quality is described in your vocational area or your academic area, using that data, those standards, the student needs to be familiar with it. They're not going to score unless they know where the goalposts are. They need to understand assessment criteria in their own terms, and they're notoriously difficult to understand. Teachers have trouble with them, so no wonder students do. And this process of marking other people's work begins to make them realize, oh, look, this person hasn't shown their working, say, or This person's not, you know, has forgot to mention the health and safety factors here. They should have done, and that sort of thing. Okay, lovely. One other advantage of peer assessment is that the student gets their own work back marked by somebody they don't trust, which is great because you know, they look at it and they think, shouldn't I have got an extra mark for that one? And then they look back at the question, they look at the assessment criteria, they look back at their work, the question, the assessment criteria, and they're getting really deep into exactly what they wrote down. And they often think, oh God, yes, I did drop a clanger there. Next time, maybe I'll read the question.